Hello, and welcome back to the ALeeT podcast, where we fix our own problems in real time. Now, before I get started, let me say, these are not the views of the Department of War, the Department of the Air Force, or the United States Space Force. They are mine, and mine alone. Now, I guess I'm shifting my episodes to Sundays, and that's okay, right? Everybody's fine with that. I went to a concert the other day, and I'm surprised that my voice didn't break completely. Even though, the band's name is Breaking Benjamin, so you would think that it would break my voice to sing along, but no. And then tomorrow I'm gonna go see Bring Me the Horizon and Motionless in White. So oh my goodness, I'm so scared. I've not screamed in a very long time. I yelled red during Red Cold River, but not like that. It was way louder. I'm just not gonna do it here because I might scare some people. But anyways, today on the podcast we're gonna be talking about resilience, and again, I have a guest. You should be familiar with him. He was on episode 3 of the podcast. His name is Karl Musick, and he brings with him his service dog, Nyx, aka the Resilient Next. You should follow her on Instagram if you're not already. Follow me on Instagram. And I will be debuting a new closing today. Maybe it will get people to start talking to me a little bit more on Instagram, YouTube, whatever. Oh, by the way, I need to do a shout out because I met some people when I was at the concert. So it wasn't only Breaking Benjamin, it was also 3 Days Grace, and then some band about dust, like Ashes to Dust or something like that. Yeah, Ashes to Dust. Anyway, shout out to Chris, Shauna, and Ashley who sat in front of me during the show, and they got tons of selfies with me included in them. Totally purposeful, by the way, because eventually I was just like, because Ashley apologized to me, and I was like, next time I'll throw up signs or whatever, and she's like, come on, do it. And I was like, okay, sweet. So I had a lot of fun at that show. It's my first show in well over 10 years. So anyway, back to the topic of resilience. So this is along the lines of the 9 tenets of SPUG. So those are, we started with accountability, pride, clarity, discipline, resilience, mentorship, allyship, legacy, reflection. So those are the 9 tenets. And so it looks like we're about halfway through. Yeah. By my calculations, I didn't count just then when I said it out loud. So you'll have to forgive me for my maths in the morning. Wow. So before we get started into the interview, I want to do my normal thing of defining what the word means that we're covering, or the topic, right? So resilience, according to Merriam-Webster, is an ability to recover from or adjust easily to misfortune or change. So I don't think about the misfortune piece very often, because is it really misfortune? Because everything that you do has some type of consequence, whether that's good or bad. But if you plan properly, if you plan accordingly, if you take the accountability, if you take the pride, if you get clarity, if you use discipline, then you should know, because, let's call it back to episode 7 again. If you use the SMART method coupled with the primer method, if you're not familiar with the primer method, listen up, because I talk about it a little bit during the interview. But please do go back to episode 7 and look that up. But you should be planning accordingly, and so any misfortune should be foreseen should be. There are times, I know, when other things get in the way, but please plan for those things regardless of what it is. So let's talk about the key aspects of the definition real quick. So the adaptability piece, of course, when you're talking about resilience and you're talking about recovering or adjusting easily from or to change, this is something that we've done, that I did throughout my military career, and then moving forward into the civilian world, I'm having to adapt and overcome because I'm so used to things being handed to me. Like, right? I don't mean that in like a silver spoon type of way. I mean that in a, this is the way that you're going to do it, and so boom, do it, right? But we don't have it that way on the civilian side. It's, if you don't figure it out, then we're going to replace you with somebody who will figure it out. So that's the big difference here. So the ability to adapt, especially in like high pressure environments, high stress environments, where, you know, whatever it is that you do could have like $1 million repercussions or even $1 billion repercussions, and you're just sitting there trying to make your whatever 100,000 a year, 75, 120, 155, whatever it is that you make. I'm not going to sit here and guess. I'm not going to belittle anybody for making less than what I'm anticipating making. So, Lord willing and the creek don't rise, as we like to say down south. So yeah, adaptability, the ability to change or adjust when faced with difficulties or new circumstances. I see that straight up as resilience, because you're able to maneuver through things. And remember, in the last episode, I said that I have this unique ability to do that. That is because of my resilience. I have a lot of willpower, and whenever I want something, I find my way to get that thing. And I don't always get what I want, but just like the Rolling Stones say, I guess sometimes you get what you need. They quoted it a lot on House, so that's the only reason I know that. I don't listen to the Rolling Stones. Don't at me. It's a little too old for my blood. Just kidding. I like Frank Sinatra, so seriously, don't at me. Recovery. So this is the next key aspect. Bouncing back or returning to a previous state after experiencing hardship or setbacks. So this is an interesting thing. It says bouncing back or returning to a previous state after experiencing hardships or setbacks. So this would assume that your hardship, like you were already at the level that you're trying to achieve, and you're just trying to re-achieve whatever that goal is, right? So you could say that I am in a constant state of recovery when it comes to my weight, because I've already been that weight before at one point in my life. But here's the kicker, is it's going to be a different me, because I've been through a lot physically. So figuring out how to do that without totally wrecking my knees, my back, whatever. I mean, I went to a freaking 4-hour concert the other night, and oh god, tomorrow's gonna be way worse, because these people like you to bounce and stuff. Freaking heavy metal, I swear to god. Anyways, I will bounce if I have to. You can bounce if you want to. JK, LOL. Okay. Physical or psychological is the next piece. While resilience can describe physical elasticity like a spring, it most often refers to a person's mental and emotional ability to cope with challenges. So this is the big piece for me, because that plays exactly into SPUG. The pieces where we developed this thing, right? So I like it on all aspects, because when you're resilient, you can reach out to the correct people for your social wellness. You can live by your mantra. You can journal. You can try to think of like the spiritual piece, right? Like worship the way that you worship, or live the way that you want to live in your spiritual sense. So of course, then it has the physical and the psychological, or like I like to say mental, because it's not just psychological, right? Like it's all of the mind. So physical resilience would be like recovering from some type of injury, or prolonged weight gain, or trying to gain weight even because of an eating disorder or depression or something that made you not get right. And I mean, you see this a lot in like sports with like wrestling, mixed martial arts, where you have to be inside of a certain weight class. And of course, I see a lot of this with brides and stuff. I haven't been to many weddings, but I do watch a lot of romantic comedies and stuff. How I Met Your Mother is pretty big on this, with Lily in the wedding dress. She lost a ton of weight, and then Robin gets her to eat a bunch of stuff so she will gain weight so she can fit into her dress. And then of course the psychological piece, I think that is the biggest part, or the mental piece is the biggest part, because it is all a mindset, right? Like you have to, well, that's also the spiritual piece. It's changing your mindset and your goals to make sure that you can attain whatever it is that you want, right? So it's creating these goals and knowing that there's going to be obstacles in the way and planning around them. And then once you get to these obstacles, actually adhering to, now that's more of the discipline, but I wish I would have said that last week, but adhering to your plan, your goal, even though it's tough, even when it's tough. Let's do this. You're very close to your goal of losing weight. You're 5 pounds away, and your workout buddy moves. What do you do? So it's always good to have a backup plan. Don't forget about that. And having a backup plan is a huge piece of resilience. So it says here, in simple terms, resilience is the capacity to bounce back from life's difficulties, whether it's recovering from a personal crisis or adjusting to a new environment. And this is big. This is the catalyst to the entirety of the podcast. Because what did I start off with? I started off with my own mental problems, and I talked about all the different challenges that come along with mental health, and all of this, the rest of these comes from change. And that's exactly why I want listeners, why I feel like I can help people, is because change is hard. But if you have somebody there to watch your back, it doesn't have to be. So, here is my interview with Karl Musick and the Resilient Knicks on a previously recorded Zoom call. Enjoy. Welcome back to the ALeeT podcast, where this week we're talking about resilience. And once again, we have Karl Musick with us. Also, welcome back to you. How you been?
Great. It's football season right now, and so coaching in the afternoons makes for long days. Leave the house, go to work, head straight to the football field, and so every day is a 13 or 14-hour day right now.
I hear that. I thought you were going to talk about your sports teams and how they're all doing better than mine are right now.
I'm grateful for my sports teams right now, but I'm unsure if all your audience is going to listen to it. One of the people that I work with on base is not a big sports fan, and so I showed her the video clip of the Go Sports Broccoli Girl. If you haven't seen this video,
I haven't.
it's one of the best things on the internet, and I'm so grateful for it, especially when I meet someone who's not as big into sports as we are. But yeah, please Google Go Sports Broccoli Girl, because it's like the best 29 seconds of the internet that I'm currently aware of. It's pretty awesome, and I share it with people who don't love sports like we do.
I might just link that.
Yeah, please
somewhere.
drop the link in the bottom. It's funny that we're like sidetracked and rabbit holed, and I don't even think we're more than 90 seconds into this. This is pretty good. We're up to a great start, Lee.
No, this is awesome. I mean, you got to talk sports and how other people cope with not having sports. That's resilience. I don't know how they do it. Apparently, some people use broccoli. I don't know.
It'll become more apparent later.
Okay, yes. We'll get on with the questions. How has resilience shaped the way you've set and achieved your goals throughout your career?
Yeah, that's a good question. I feel like when it comes to goal planning, you have to be resilient. As you're preparing to pursue a goal, there's a handful of things that I was thinking that I wanted to talk about. And, I took a couple notes, and one of the things I didn't write down was something I communicate all of the time when I'm teaching resiliency skills, and it's to consider the hurdles that are going to be in the way of you achieving that goal. The last time we chatted, we talked about the Fortify the Force initiative, and we teach resiliency skills, and every time we talk about goals, there's a little exercise that's built into these skills training, and it's called Chart Your Course. And so what is something that you can do today or in the next 24 hours? What's something you can do in the next 2 weeks? And then what's something that you can do in the next 3 months? And if you do Google searches around goal planning, you're going to find all kinds of information about communicating with others and then doing things to increase your accountability. But the most important thing is kind of like having regular progress checks. Throughout your time pursuing a goal, it's important to kind of set like little micro goals along the way and then do a progress check. Hey, am I on a good path to accomplish this goal? Was there a hurdle that I didn't consider? Any of these things that are preventing you from being as successful or as far along as you would like to be right now. And kind of going back to the first time we chatted, we're all our own worst critic. And so we have to give ourselves grace whenever we're not as far along as we would like to be. And then realize most of the time, especially with really intrinsically valuable goals, it's okay to take longer. This is a marathon. This is not a sprint. If you ever watch any videos about people who are hyper successful, you think of people achieving these things later in their 40s and 50s. And I love this Facebook post that popped up in my feed just last week. And it said something like, it only took me 17 years and 118 days to become an overnight success. And and I just completely connected with that idea, because almost nothing comes as fast as we want, but hard work and sacrifice and having the resilience to come back to something, it'll come to you when you're ready for it, I believe.
That absolutely makes sense. And there's something that you said earlier that I kind of want to compare. So, do you know about like agile versus waterfall methodologies? If you don't, the biggest agile methodology is Scrum, which of course is named after rugby. What you do in that process is you have different iterations, and you have goals that you set for yourself during that time. And then you have to test out whatever it was at the end of that iteration to see if it's a viable product. So in essence, goal setting should be incorporated just like Scrum is, for any of my
project managers out there. Cool.
Yeah, I'm currently enrolled in the Google Data Analytics course, and there's a lot of that, what we're familiar with from our Air Force experience, that continuous process improvement. So, you set a goal, like a team goal or an individual goal, as you're performing actions and as you're progressing towards this thing, there's data that's produced, and then so you evaluate the data, and then you look back on it and then see, did the purchases we make create a benefit? Did a change in a process we made create a benefit? And so if we've done something and we didn't get some sort of return on our investment, did we use it inappropriately, or can we change something or not waste money on these things to continue to progress, and then do so effectively considering a budget? I'm really grateful for this course because it's kind of like opening my eyes to why we did some things the way that we did in the Air Force and Space Force. And I think it's making me more, it's kind of like opening my eyes to how to look at opportunity in the future, and then consider, what's on the horizon.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And what you were just saying, you were talking about CSCDs and ROIs and continuous improvement, continuous development. ROIs is return on investment. So that also takes you into EVM, earned value management. And you can incorporate all of that into goal setting, even if it's just like physical fitness. If like, it doesn't matter, whatever your goal is, you're on this path for a while. Like, don't give up on something immediately, but you're on the path and it's not doing anything for you. That's something that you're going to have to just let it go. It didn't work for you, and that's fine. So, talking about that, so if it doesn't work for you, that's a setback. When life throws setbacks, how do you keep your goals in sight without losing momentum?
Honestly, I feel like for me personally, it's the support network of people that I have. One of the skills that we train regularly, there's some statistics in there, and I should have reviewed that statistic, but it's about 80% of the time you really increase the likelihood that you're going to be successful accomplishing a goal if you communicate that goal with other people. And when you share goals, I always talk about who you should share a goal with. And I think kind of like opposites attract. You probably have one parent who is like, oh, baby, I love you so much. You're doing a great job, even when you're like having your worst day, right? And I always kind of make the joke that my wife and my mom are the only two people who think I'm beautiful. So no matter what I do, I'm going to get support from those folks. And so if something's really, really, really important to you, this is like a passion, and, it gives you value and purpose. You have to communicate it with someone who's going to really hold you accountable. I think back to playing sports, or in 2006, I bowled a 299, and yes. And so I called my dad after I bowled this 299, and he had bowled a 300. And I woke him up, and he said, call me back when you bowl a 300. And so 15 months later, I bowled a 300. So in March of 2008, I bowled a 300. And I called my dad, and as soon as he answered the phone, I said, call me back when you bowl a 299, and I hung up. But the point of that story is that my dad always had like a high level of accountability for myself and my sister. We could do really well at a thing, and he would help us like evaluate how we could have done it better. Or, I mean, we could have finished first at something, and then we could evaluate what are the things that we, where did we fall short, where we could have been better. And I'm really grateful for that perspective now in retrospect, because, a lot of people maybe don't necessarily like have that level of kind of like accountability in a thing, like looking back and going, a 299 is a crazy good game. Yeah. And he said it completely joking, but when I look at it now, I'm so grateful that every single time that I had micro successes, or I was kind of like patting myself on the back, he kind of helped me like refocus and look forward and then say, all right, is this the best that I'm capable of? And so, to kind of like put like a little bow on this, there's so much benefit to communicating your goals with someone who's going to hold you accountable throughout the process. They're going to motivate you. They're going to ask you questions about what are you doing, what's going well, what's not going well. And that'll kind of keep pushing you along. Some of the research I did kind of preparing for this, I hadn't ever considered before, but I wanted to make sure that I shared with you and your audience. There is some downside to communicating your goals, and it can maybe increase the stresses related to the goal. I know I've had a lot of folks over the years who don't like to share the things that are important to them because they're worried about the haters, or they're worried about the increased stress, or they're worried about whatever. And then one of the articles that I found says that your mind will actually get like a false sense of accomplishment just by telling someone that you're going to pursue a goal, because now you've put that out into the ether, right? And so this is a real thing now, and now I'm responsible to do this thing. And so with the right person, and with the person that you love, trust, and respect, that accountability is valuable to help us continue to move forward. And so I think having a strong support network is probably the best thing for me. And so if I need a real pick-me-up, I can ask my wife or my mom. If I need a level of accountability, there's so many people. I'm so grateful for how many people I've served with that have this goal-oriented mind, and I can lean on someone and say, hey, I want to accomplish this. And, they'll ask me questions about it and keep me moving forward towards accomplishing that goal.
Right. Like, give you pointers. I mean, you've done this for me as well. I'll say, I'm thinking about doing this thing, and you're like, well, have you considered X? Like, whatever it might be.
Yeah. And
but
wrap up one more thought on that.
Yeah.
I talked a little bit about hurdles. Oftentimes when I'm teaching about goal planning or resiliency in general, you can't just admire a problem, right? And so say you like go get a degree and you can't afford it, right? And you're like, well, I'm not going to go pursue that because I don't have the funding or the financing. So when there's a hurdle or a problem in your way, do a bunch of research, figure out what tools, resources, agencies are available to. There's probably someone with some money who wants to see you be successful. And so whether you're military or not, there's just so many ways to problem solve, especially with the internet today and how you can access information. It's pretty wild what resources are available to people.
Yeah, like that one time I had to change my degree plan, and the military was only going to pay for a certain amount of credits. So you were like, do you have a FAFSA loan? And I was like, what is this? And then you're like, I haven't told you. And so, yeah, now I'm done with my master's degree. And that, of course, is partially thanks to you. I like to call it having a tribe, but social wellness, or as we call it here on the podcast, unity, and having that tribe. People that will hold you accountable is always a good thing. But like you said, you have to be careful as to who you talk to about certain things, because there are people who are jealous of you who could usurp that. They're the people that when you tell them you're on a diet, they're the ones that bring the donuts in the next day and offer you first. So watch out for those people.
I love donuts. If my wife and donuts are in the same room and I say I love you, she asks me if I'm talking to her or the donuts.
And you're always talking to the donuts, of course.
It's
or both.
Day to day. I do love both. And so absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of science about people who aren't as goal-oriented as you are, and how people they're more concerned about seeing you fail at accomplishing a thing than they are at pursuing or accomplishing their own goals. And so that hater stuff can be frustrating for sure.
Next question. Have you ever had to completely pivot a goal because of unexpected challenges? And what did resilience teach you in that moment?
Yeah, I've regularly had to refocus and reevaluate goals. When I chose my bachelor's degree, I was in Afghanistan, and I had dozens of different degrees I was interested in from a handful of different schools, and it took me probably just a smidge over 4 years to achieve that goal of completing my bachelor's degree. And I had dozens of hurdles along the way. My next assignment after leaving England, I was stationed at Peterson, and I went on 44 TDYs over a 48-month period. And so once every 5 weeks, I left home to go to some other location to do the job, work on satellite communications equipment. And sometimes it was 3 days and sometimes it was 2 weeks. And all of the time there was a new hurdle or challenge to consider and overcome. Was the internet going to be good where I was at? Was there a time zone difference? Going to this place, was my homework due at 10 p.m. on Sunday instead of 4 a.m. on Monday morning? And if I didn't consider those things, then it could create another challenge or hurdle. I'm so grateful that there were people who were rooting for me and supportive along the way. I had a deployment. I PCS'd twice while I was doing all of my educational stuff. I went on 44 TDYs. I got divorced. I went through the Air Force's program where they train junior NCOs. It's called the Non-Commissioned Officer Academy. And I actually did my capstone for my bachelor's degree during Non-Commissioned Officers Academy, which was...
They let you do that?
They did. And I remember my supervisor saying, "Hey, Karl, can you do both of these things at the same time?" And I knew it was going to be a great challenge. And so I didn't have a goal of winning the Distinguished Graduate Award while I was in NCOA, the Non-Commissioned Officers Academy. And so it wasn't a big deal for me to put a bunch of extra time into being the very best at all of the things there, because I was dumping so much time and energy into this capstone project. It was an 8-week-long project, and I ended up having a 27 slideshow with a 43-page Word document embedded into it, and then videos kind of showing how to do specific exercises and workouts or drills that this athlete would accomplish. And so the project was, pick an athlete, put them into a year-long workout, and then design a nutrition plan over a 30-day period. They have to go compete in 2 events in the same day in a city that you don't live in. And so I had to find a city, and I had to find 2 venues that could host a football game, and then they had to travel between it. And so I had to find them transportation. I had to get a bus. I had to get them a nutrition plan for this day. I had to find places that would actually sold the things that, and so it was a really involved project. And the school that I went to is in West Virginia. And so I actually chose some venues in Virginia, and I had them travel in the same city from place to place. But all right, well, maybe the bus has to get gas, so we're going to stop at this gas station and we're going to buy this bag of nuts and, some fruit and some other things so that we can hit all our macros and micros.
Nice.
And so it was a really involved project, and I learned a lot from that experience. And I've kind of lost where our original question was. I'm so grateful that I had to research something and follow it through with this level of detail, because there's so many things that we do in our lives that we don't have to research things to this level of detail and then see every single point all the way through. And I ended up crushing that project. I'm really proud of, what I accomplished there.
And finished NCOA at the same time.
And finished NCOA at the same time.
That is insane. I was about to say, did you also get the Lavato? Because that would have been hilarious.
No, and actually it's really weird. I learned a really valuable lesson about professional military education while I was there. I watched one of the best speeches I've ever seen in my entire career get like an 83 up against the Air Force rubric because of his delivery of the speech. And it was like moving, you know what I mean? It was such a great story, and I thought it was really well laid out and executed. And then someone else in the class gave a very ho-hum, you know, just following the rubric speech. And, you know, people looked like they were going to fall asleep, and they got 100 up against
Oh my
the rubric.
God.
And so it really opened my eyes to, you know, as an educator and as a teacher and a facilitator, how should I deliver material, and, you know, against like the expectation of communicating a message. And, you know, I kind of have my own art to it, but I don't think you get better at communicating if you don't realize that kind of people have an expectation of you to kind of follow a rubric or follow a story to a certain degree. And and I think I've become a much better communicator over time, because, you know, the Air Force says, hey, tell us what you're going to tell us about it, and then tell us what you told us about. And and understanding that model, and then trying to communicate within that model, so that way people understand that, hey, I'm going to communicate a thing to you, and then, you know, you're at the conclusion because you've put like a nice bow on this thing at the end.
Yeah. What is it? Effective communication and then closing the loop, right? That is actually like a huge thing, and most people consider it like unteachable. It's something that you can only learn how to do. It is effective communication. Like, not be taught it, but actually like live it. And that's actually one of my favorite things to do is, hey, I want to do this thing. And then you don't hear anything back. Like, say you send an email to somebody. You don't hear anything back for a week, a month, whatever it is. And you're like, well, guess I'm not doing that thing. No. No, resilience is following up, right? So
Right.
If you want to do whatever that thing is, send another email. And then if they don't email you back within a week, find out where they work. Go to their desk. Call them on the phone.
So whenever people bring me those sorts of problems, you know, as a leader in the military for a long time, hey, I sent an email and I didn't get a follow-up. Well, if you send someone an email, then I can just address it whenever I want. But if I call someone, if I'm that customer service person and maybe I don't have time, or maybe I'm distracted or busy, I just got to get you off the phone.
Mm-hmm.
If you go to someone's office, don't leave until they solve the problem. And
Yep.
so an email can be ignored, a phone call, you know, this person just has to get you off the phone.
It has to be
if you
expedited.
go to someone's office, the level of customer service that you're going to get versus a phone call or versus an email is going to be different. And, and I think it's probably like this like built-in accountability versus an email. Okay, I can get to this when I can get to it. A phone call. All right, this phone call isn't complete until I hang up. And then the same thing with a visit in person. You know, this person has to get you out of their office. And so I think we should be demanding customers when it comes to the things that are important to us.
Yeah. I've never used Teams more than I have over the last, 2 weeks. I swear. And just getting people to answer their Teams. And then all they do is send back 5 words. And I'm like, talk to me, dude. Talk to me. I don't know anything. Help me.
Right. That's fair.
Yeah. But then I'll just be like, I'll turn around and be like, hey, does anybody know where so-and-so sits? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, okay, take me.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's a great way to problem solve.
Yep. Next question. What daily habits or routines build the kind of resilience needed to stay on track with long-term goals?
A daily practice is, kind of in line with some of the things that we've already talked about. in addition to communicating with someone else, you can write it down. Writing it down, just like saying it out loud, makes it real. And so, you could keep a journal and then say, all right, what are some things that I did to progress towards accomplishing this goal? And then also writing it down, you can consider the hurdles, or, in the Air Force and Space Force, when we do feedback sessions with folks, there's this form that we fill out. It actually has the best way the goal plan according to the Department of the Air Force, and is to create SMART goals, right? And so it's specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and then time-based. And I think time-based is probably the thing that I like the most there. If you're communicating with someone, or if you're writing things down for yourself, you put down, like, how far did I progress towards this goal? And it kind of creates some more accountability. And, all right, if I don't achieve this and this by this time frame, then I'm not on track to accomplish that goal in the time frame that I would like to. So daily, you put this thing in a place where you're going to be every day. Put it on your office desk, put it on your mirror in your bathroom. I've actually heard about people putting it right above their toothbrush. That way I have to see this thing every single day. And that consistency in seeing this thing that's important and valuable to you will encourage you to go accomplish it.
Nice. So you talked about the SMART goals. Did you listen to the other episodes of the podcast?
I've listened to 4 of your, I think this is episode 10, right? 11?
This is going to be 12.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm behind. The football season started in the last 6 weeks, and so I have a little bit of free time here, a little free time there. Jess and I were actually looking at when we could have our next date, and no kidding, we were looking at our calendar, and so today we have some free time, and then, all right, what day can we go on a date? October 24th, we can go on a date.
Oh my God.
Just this time of year, we're doing the things that are valuable to us and that we're passionate about. And so we have check-ins for sure. But we have limited time to do things together right now for sure.
So the primer method, there is the SMART goals. So specific, measurable, achievable / attainable, realistic, time-based. And then there's also the primer method, which was created by Damon Zahiriades. That's pinpoint your objective, refine the details, identify obstacles, modify your plan, evaluate progress, revisit and reset. So I really love this. I haven't read his books yet, but it makes me want to so bad. He has a lot of these neat little books like this, but that really drives it home a little bit further for me, because yes, it's good to have SMART goals. It's good to say something is achievable, but how are you doing your checks and balances, right? And I think including the primer method, I mean, if the Air Force was to say, hey, we need to look at this as well, that way it allows you to really, reach whatever those goals are. And for me, obviously, you were at my retirement ceremony, is knowing somebody's why, like what is the reason that you joined. And a lot of people will say, I joined for education benefits. And yet they've been in for 6 years and haven't taken a single college course. And you're like, what are you doing? And it's usually because they haven't had a supervisor who actually cares enough to drive them to do whatever their goals are. So, and that goes back to what we were saying earlier with having that person, that either a mentor, a spouse, somebody who has your back and can help you achieve those goals.
Yeah. So I think it's important that we share in the Space Force. We call those shuttle buddies.
Yes.
Yes.
I mean, you and Harms, sure.
It's so good. I mean, if you ever talk to anyone in the Army and they talk about battle buddies and how important it is to have a good battle buddy, I love that Space Force adoption to a shuttle buddy. I think that's so good.
I can't do it. I just call them teammates.
That's good. I can get down with teammate. I just really related to Shuttle Buddy because it's got a level of absurdity to it that
it really does.
But it has that important message of how important it is to have people around you who are in your corner, and either whether it's check-ins or whether it's like literal the follow-up. Hey, you said this was important to you. If it's important to you, what are you doing to go achieve it?
Nice. How has resilience helped you inspire or mentor others toward their own goals? Oh, that's a good one for you.
Yeah. I've always been pretty open and transparent about the struggles that I had early in my career, and as a young man without a lot of things that I was accountable for, or accountable to. I sometimes joke that like I wasn't a real adult until I was 28 and I became a father. And, I chose to learn a lot of lessons the most difficult way possible. And, sharing my experiences, learning lessons the hard way, I think are probably like some of the most real and important conversations that I've had over the course of my career in the military, because, people will see my body language change. They'll hear my tone change, and then they'll know that I'm speaking from a place of experience. And when I tell people, hey, I'm sharing this piece of information with you because I want you to be more successful than I was. I don't want you to experience the hardships that I experienced when I was in your shoes at that time. And then the funny thing is kind of like, as we're talking, I'm thinking like as a parent, sharing things with my kids, and then thinking back to my dad and mom sharing lessons with me. And I was like, I'm way smarter than you, and I'm going to do it better than you, and so I definitely I would have achieved some goals earlier if I would have realized the place that my parents were coming from sharing. And so when I communicate with someone who's pursuing a goal, I want to make sure that I talk about what I felt when I didn't achieve a thing. And that way someone can literally, I want them to like literally feel what I felt. And so that way they won't make the same decision I did, and then they'll do it better. And then hopefully they will have access to the resource that I'll tell them about. Hopefully they'll have follow through. Hopefully we'll have more conversations about it. And so that way I can check in, or I can help them problem solve. And pursuing a goal, I mean, if all of the things were easy, everyone would do it. And it's not always easy, and there's going to be setbacks. And so how I've helped others is really in that, just being vulnerable and transparent and sharing what I was good and not good at. And I'm hopeful that it's helped lots of people. And, I love when, like, there's been a couple of times you've shared during this episode of how I've been able to have an impact and help you. That makes me feel so good that it accomplished its goal. It allow you to pursue a thing and then be successful at something that was important to you. And that's really valuable to me, that not to say that the time was not wasted, but that it had its desired effect,
Yeah. And I mean, it's true what they say about smoke pits. Real work gets done in military smoke pits.
Absolutely. I was teaching a course. So I'm currently on a skill bridge, and I'm the suicide prevention specialist for Buckley Space Force Base. And one of the final slides is, how do you problem solve? And then what are some healthy coping skills with stress? And I often talk about smoke pit solutions, and I get that it's not like a healthy stress coping skill, but it is a great problem solving step. And I always make sure that when I'm talking about this, that, it's not the nicotine, it's whatever, it's the get up, get away from the problem. And so oftentimes we're so focused on a problem that we don't even see the people and the resources and whatever that's around us that want to see us succeed. at accomplishing this task. And so step away from the problem. Sometimes it's like new and fresh eyes when you come see it again. Or, I often make the joke that someone's like, hey, dummy, did you just pull the flux capacitor out and put it back in, and then it'll work again? And oftentimes it's things like that. The solution's way easier than we think when we have our face right up against the problem.
Yeah. And to bring that, smoke pit solution thing home for other people, it isn't about the nicotine. It's about getting out, getting your vitamin D free from the sun. It gives you that. Getting that fresh air on your face.
Getting up and walking.
Yeah, getting up and walking, moving your body. And you're outside of the office, so you don't feel that constant nagging of, is somebody going to come in here and interrupt this, or whatever that stressful work environment is. It takes you out of that and allows you to be more free, more open about whatever it is that's bothering you. What's really cool about where I'm working right now is we go on walks. And so I used to call it going for a walk way back in the day. But we actually walk around the building, and we're in civilian clothes, of course. And we're just walking around talking about how I pick Josh Allen in the second round every year. We were
a good choice.
Talking about fantasy football, talking about anything but work, because we're trying to keep our minds off of that thing that we've been working on for the last 2 or 3 hours since the last time we went on a walk. So, and it's really refreshing too, especially when the sun's out and there's a nice breeze. Hey, it's all good. So I really like that you kind of talked about a little bit about this, but as you step into retirement, what goals are you setting now, and how does resilience continue to guide you? And that's funny that I'm asking that of you with your current role.
Yeah. This path into retirement, I think it's all about resilience. It's about, setting good goals. It's about pursuing the things that are valuable and important to me. Checking in with my wife when there's opportunity. Hey, are you interested in the city? How do you feel about these sorts of jobs or these companies? And, no matter what the opportunity is, the only thing that matters to me is that it's good for my family. Kind of more specifically, some short-term goals are finding happiness in that next job. And I have some long-term goals, and depending upon how opportunities work out, it'd be really awesome if I could be prepared for and then walk into an opportunity that maybe creates wealth that I can leave for my kids, and if they use it effectively, for my grandkids. And so, well, actually, since the last time we talked, I found out that I'll be a grandpa here in 5 months, and so it's pretty awesome.
What?
Yeah.
So was it a shotgun wedding then?
No. I had 2 kids who got married in the same week, and my oldest kid is Steven. He's having a baby in February, and we're pretty excited that we could be grandparents. So, that kind of changes my perspective even a little bit more, with, hey, reshift, what's important, and, try to find a way to prepare finances to set it up so that I can leave something for them. And so.
Nice. Wow. Obviously, you going above and beyond my question. 'Cause you're talking about not just you, but future generations, like 2 generations beyond you, at least.
Well, I have the gratitude that a retirement and some disability will provide for my family, and there's opportunities that'll provide, and has an opportunity to create a level of comfort that my family deserves after all the sacrifice that comes with serving in the military. And so, I'm grateful that we're in this position now. that I might be able to make sure that my family gets a return on their investment for the sacrifices they made to
Oh
allow
yeah.
me to have some success in my career. And, that's always a weird conversation coming home and asking your spouse, hey, do you support a move? Do you support this deployment? Do you support me pursuing this thing in my career? And the level of support that I got from my wife, Jess, is just something that I don't think I can ever really repay. And, I'm hopeful that with the opportunities that are in front of us, that I can make sure that in the future at some point, I don't want her to have to make sacrifice anymore. I want her to have a level of comfort that she deserves because of all the times that she just supported my career and said, yes, yeah, let's do that because it's going to be best for the family.
Absolutely. That is amazing. So what's one resilient practice you'd challenge SPUG Nation, that's what we call my listeners, to apply immediately to their own goals?
Thinking to the resiliency skills that we teach, I think probably the most applicable would be a skill that's called balance your thinking. And when you evaluate information, are you stuck in a cognitive trap? So are you getting some information that gives you like a misrepresentation of the information? And we have another dog cameo. So there's 4 primary cognitive traps that we talk about with the Fortify the Force initiative stuff. The Fortify the Force initiative, the things that get in your way of giving you a false representation of the information. And, there's something like trying to mind read is a cognitive trap, right? So like imposing an expectation on someone, but not telling someone that expectation. There's other cognitive traps, having unfair expectations of others compared to what you would expect of yourself. And I think that's probably what most of us are, especially if we're listening to this podcast. You're probably in that group of people who you judge yourself more harshly than you judge other people. And so no matter what the message is, I think grace is probably like the biggest takeaway. And so as you're pursuing your goal, if you aren't as far along as you want, or if you're judging yourself too harshly and you're stuck in this cognitive trap, give yourself some grace. There's some hurdles that you didn't anticipate them being as impactful as they currently are. And so, work through this hurdle, refocus, reevaluate where you are, and then, move the goal if you need to. And, sometimes we're further along than we think we would have been. And now you get to move a deadline up, and then sometimes you're behind. I don't think any of us would stop pursuing a goal because we accomplished something earlier than we expected. So reevaluate and maybe set your goal further. And if you're a little behind right now, that's okay. Move the date back and then reevaluate and give yourself some grace and push forward to accomplishing that goal just a little later than you expected. It's not, I think we started with this thing's a marathon, not a sprint, and you'll get there. Just keep chipping away.
Absolutely. I mean, it's a marathon, not a sprint, but it can be tiny sprints built into a big marathon.
Absolutely. I think when we talked about education, I talked about maybe a bachelor's degree as a 5-year goal, right? So this quarter you take 2 classes. This year, maybe you take 6 or 8 classes and you give yourself some time off. But all of the little micro goals should add up, and they should be in line with your long-term goals.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that whole sprint marathon thing, because I kind of want to stay there for a second. I really like that because I was talking about Scrum earlier, and inside of iterations you have sprints. And what do you do at the end of each sprint? You see where you are. And so and this is not talking about literal sprints. This is talking about scrum sprints.
Then you have a little mindfulness practice at the end of it. You
there you
evaluate
go.
the information.
Yes.
You see where we are. You kind of take inventory.
And know that you're not done. You're not done until you get to that goal. And the only way that you can fail is if you give up. And resilience is the way through. So, cool. Thanks for coming back.
Yeah, for sure. I'm super grateful that you had me. I knew we were talking about goals, and so I kind of set a couple goals for this podcast. And hopefully we achieved one, because I think we failed at the other. One of my goals was don't require any podcast edits, and we failed horribly and wonderfully at achieving that goal. And so, a couple of dog cameos, a couple other interruptions or hurdles that we didn't anticipate. And so my other goal was to hopefully get invited back one more time. And so we'll see if we accomplish that goal.
No. You're here forever.
Oh, I appreciate that. That's good. That makes me feel good. All right, so,
yeah.
All right. So if we were playing baseball, we would go right into the Hall of Fame, batting 500. It's never happened in the history of baseball. And so.
Yeah. So, that's another thing is, was that goal realistic? Because.
No podcast edits or
the no podcast edits. That is not realistic.
I thought, we did really good on the first one. I thought there would be some minor edits. And then there was I think I had a lapse or a brain fart. And so this time I really wanted to be better prepared so that I didn't have that podcast edit. And I anticipated there was a possibility of a dog cameo. I just didn't realize that we would have multiples. And so I created some work for you.
I'm here for it. I like him when I have a lot of content to work with as well. And I obviously felt more comfortable with this one because I talked to you throughout. So I enjoyed that. Here I am debriefing.
Thanks again to Karl Musick and the Resilient Nicks for that awesome interview. And I hope that everybody took away something from this interview. I really enjoyed all of the answers to the questions. And if you want to engage, like I said, follow the Resilient Nicks on Instagram at @the_resilient_Nicks. And then you can follow me also at @the_ALeeT_podcast. And my challenge for you is to reach out. I want to know what you think of these episodes. Do they suck? Are they terrible? Am I a bad human being? Am I a good human being? Are you thankful that I have the podcast? I want to know. I want to hear words. I want to see words on a screen, and I want to read them, and then I want to type more words onto that, and I want you to read them. That's conversation. I want to have a conversation. This isn't one way. And to prove that, thanks again for listening to the ALeeT Podcast. Next week, we will continue our conversations revolving around the tenants of SPUG. So until next time, stay Spuggin ALeeT. Over.